Good day, I'm Marina Kim with the latest news from Kazakhstan. These are the headlines. The closer the Congress, the stronger the pressure. Delegates preparing to attend the meeting over the referendum are detained by the police. Elections without a choice. Political scientists discuss the president and his election program. Family members of inmates detained in Kazakh prisons appeal to President Nazarbayev, complaining about tortures in correctional facilities. The organizers of the Congress to discuss the referendum on the president's resignation talk about the intensification of pressure from the law enforcers. The event is scheduled for Saturday, September 25, 2010, with delegates from various regions of the country departing to Almaty on Friday. Some of the delegates were detained by the police and some were intimidated into cancelling their invitations. According to activists of the party Alga, the Congress should unite all those against the stable rule of the current president. In total, 640 people expressed their desire to take part in the event. Find out next how many of them were stopped by the authorities on their way to Almaty.
Ust-Kamenogorsk participants of the Congress for the initiation of a referendum on the resignation of the president felt like real spies on Friday. To make it on time to Almaty, they had to catch a train at the remote stations where the train makes only a short stop, with tickets bought for different cars and later exchanged several times. The conspiration worked and the delegates departed successfully. Unfortunately, not everyone was this lucky. A crying pensioner was left behind in the Ust-Kamenogorsk party office. Her pills no longer working. Svetlana Grigorieva says she was intimidated into submission. First, she was invited by a policeman, and later officials demanded her to confirm the seniority, threatening to cut the pension. They learned that I am going to Almaty and decided to intimidate me using my pension. What else could they use against the pensioner? When I told them that I will bring my papers on Monday, they replied that then the pension will come late. I was forced to bring all the documents this morning. We're so weak and powerless because they can intimidate me, a person with higher education, using this pension. I feel like a fool now. In another region, delegates gathered at the train station at 6 in the morning. 10 minutes before the departure, it became clear that most of the group is not going. 22 activists of the NGOs Leave Housing to People spent the last night speaking to the law enforcement agents. Not everyone could depart today. 22 people are staying behind because of the pressure last night. They do not tell us who did it or where. They just gave their train tickets to the people they talked to. In the area center Shar, the police stopped the departing Congress delegates, citing the investigation of the murder on September 22nd. The security officials even launched an Operation Interception. From the words of the witnesses, the democratic suspects were showing the identity of the alleged criminal. Alga activist Yerlan Kaliyev was kept in the police station until the train left to Almaty. Citing the Operation Interception, all people departing to the city had to write explanatory notes, and so I did. The police forcefully dragged me to the station at 11:45, and I was there until the train departed at 1 p.m. 3 delegates failed to leave the Karaganda region without showing their IDs. Police officers in the west of the country put pressure on the 37 delegates right in the train. A total of 600 guests were expected to attend the Congress in Almaty, but only about half of them managed to make it.
The information that Nazarbayev intends to run for presidency in 2012 has reached the country's political scientists. During today's press conference in Almaty, they have come to believe that the program 2020, announced 9 months ago, is nothing but a pre-election campaign. Experts note that this program doesn't set the task of the society's democratization and seeks only to strengthen the current government.
Kazakh analysts see the presidential program 2020 as Nursultan Nazarbayev's pre-election pitch. The document was presented this February, and now experts summarize the initial results of the implemented presidential orders. According to Andrei Chebotarev, the program's intended objective is not the liberalization or democratization of the society. Quite the contrary, the key goal is the modernization and reinforcement of vertical power. The president has practically defined the outcome of his election campaign, and in this context, the program 2020 will likely become the head of state's pre-election program, especially since he named his ruling party Nuratan as the key factor for its implementation. It is likely that the main burden of the campaigning will be placed upon the party. Economist Makhbat Spanov is confident that the majority of government's programs are still a set of wishful thinking. The respected expert cites the failures, the forced industrialization and the infamous project drinking water. Spanov believes that lack of systematic approach in the work of the authorities is easily spotted. It is only only necessary to compare the announcement dates of the two key documents, the state budget and the annual president's address. The finance ministry is working for the entire year and then presents and approves the state budget on December 1st. But in February or March, the president addresses the nation and talks about spending, although the finances have been allocated already. Then only Masimov's cabinet can pull out 130 billion from their stash to show how well they work. The conference participants agreed that the presidential elections 2012 will hardly change the attitude of officials towards the state programs. A radical system reform is needed to make the government being carrying them out, although experts believe that the current regime no longer able to offer this to the society.
Kazakh foreign minister, on behalf of Nursultan Nazarbayev, asked the US president to take part in the upcoming OSCE summit in Astana. The special invitation was personally handed over to Barack Obama.
The meeting between Kanat Saudubayev and Barack Obama took place during the 65th session of the UN General Assembly currently underway in New York. The press service of the Kazakh Foreign Ministry says, quote, after expressing his gratitude for the invitation and conveying best regards to President Nazarbayev, Obama reiterated the US commitment to further strengthen the close cooperation with Kazakhstan. At the same time, the American president didn't say whether he was going to personally participate in the upcoming OSCE summit. Undoubtedly, this will be a spectacular show with many guests and everyone praising Nazarbayev. Barack Obama needs results and solid proposals. He has to go back with some sort of breakthrough and not just reaffirm his loyalty to Nazarbayev.
Family members of inmates detained in an Astana prison appealed to the president of the country with an open letter claiming prisoners are tortured and asking for Nazarbayev's personal intervention. Human rights activists confirmed these claims. The next story has more.
At a press conference in Astana, Kuramshin claimed that beating in the Astana prison EC 166/10 is not an isolated case. The activist believes that inmates in question are suspected to be linked to the daring escape from the Aktau correctional facility this summer. The relatives of the inmates have written a letter to President Nazarbayev asking him to deal with the arbitrariness in Kazakh prisons and punish those responsible. The wife of one of the inmates, Anargul Zhalbaldieva, showed reporters some photos of her husband beaten up. The woman managed to take this pictures on the camera on her mobile phone during the last meeting with her husband. Guards are near. He says that everything is fine, but I know that he is currently in the infirmary with his lip split and the entire body covered with clothes, so nothing is seen underneath. The guards were near the whole time and there was no opportunity to talk normally, but I know that he has broken ribs, damaged kidneys, and there is also something wrong with his legs. In the meantime, the representatives of the Justice Ministry do not know what is happening in the infamous correctional facility. The official department representative Yerbolat Yerimbetov said during the briefing that the ministry has no information about the beatings. At the same time, the officials of the Correctional System Committee continue to assert that inmates of the Astana prison were not beaten.
On Friday, relatives of inmates detained in the prison ICH 167/3 literally stormed the gates of the correctional facility. Inmates' mothers and wives claim they received calls from the inside saying that the facility's administration is planning what was referred to as hard pressure. Frightened women demanded to clear up the situation and allow them to meet their loved ones. Instead, the prison's administration set up a mini tour of the facility for journalists present at the scene.
If something happens to my son, I will put myself on fire. Family members of inmates detained in the Shymkent prison ICH 167/3 are desperate after being told over the phone by their loved ones on the inside that they expect to be pressured. Supposedly, there are some people in mosques on the territory of the facility. This woman even chose not to give her last name. My son called me today and said that I should take friends and come to the prison because a riot is brewing and inmates will be beaten. Around 50 people have gathered at the prison's front gates. Mothers and wives of inmates want to at least hear some explanation. These women were told about 2 buses with soldiers that supposedly arrived to the facility. The gathered people had to wait for 2 hours until the prison administration finally decided to talk to them. The prison guards believe there are no reasons for concern. The situation is normal, nothing illegal like riots or disorders has been reported. I don't know where these rumors come from. After that, the gates of the prison were opened, although only for the journalists who were let inside to see that everything was all right. Unfortunately, the short 5-minute-long tour didn't go further the control post near the meeting room.
The demands of inmates from the prison AK-159/7 in the Dalinka village of the Karaganda region were recognized as unreasonable, reported the official representative of the Justice Ministry, Yerkebulat Yerimbet. On September 20th, 8 inmates of this correctional facility mutilated themselves, demanding the relaxation of the detention conditions.
Namely, this refers to the free movement around the prison and abolition of duties. The health condition of self-wounded inmates is stable. The internal investigation over the case of self-mutilation is still underway, although the Justice Ministry already calls the inmates' demands unreasonable. Yerkebulat Yerimbet notes that the Ministry is preparing proposals for the humanization of the criminal legislation and decriminalization of felony. In the light of the adopted decree, we're working on the humanization of the criminal legislation and decriminalization of felonies. In this regard, the Ministry believes that an amnesty will be a premature measure.
Legal scholars discussed the humanization of criminal legislation and abolition of punishment for crimes that do not pose danger to the society. At a conference in Astana, they discussed issues of reforming the penitentiary system of the country.
For instance, lawyers propose to shift economic crimes from criminal to administrative code and impose stricter fines. According to the rector of the Kazakh Law University, the abolition of a pre-trial examination is necessary to reduce the terms of investigation, which sometimes last for years. Marat Kagamov is confident that this will lead to the decreased number of criminal cases and less corruption among the prosecutors. If we move away from the system and activities which usually occur immediately after the registration of a statement of a crime report and start the investigation instead, we will have a unique opportunity to expand the judicial control over the investigation of criminal cases, which is currently absent during the pre-trial stages.
The growth in juvenile crime rates across the country is reported by members of law enforcement agencies. Minors are more frequently seen involved in robberies, fights and extortion. Unsurprisingly, the crime peak occurs at the start of the school year.
Pavlodar policemen escort every pupil from school to bus stop, believing this is the way to lower the crime level. Special patrols will be deployed at several schools with police officers and inspectors patrolling their territories on foot. In addition, district and school inspectors will accompany children to bus stops. Policemen say this is the desperate measure as the region witnesses the rise of juvenile delinquency. Teenagers frequently engaged in theft, beatings and extortion. More than 5,000 complaints have been already registered since the beginning of the year. In Shymkent, the crime is fought with words, as one of the schools is engaged in the experiment. Offences and offenders are revealed through a secret polling. Later, the troubled teens spend time with psychologists. We use 2 methods in our work, persuasion and agreements. Other words like violence, intimidation and blackmailing are not effective. Shymkent pupils like this approach. If the experiment will be deemed a success, it will be implemented in all city schools. Quarrels with classmates and family members happen, and these people will definitely help you to deal with situations like these, as it is hard to do so on your own. According to Pavlodar police, teenagers are most frequent engaged in forcefully taking away each other's mobile phones. Officers are sure that the time for talks is over. It is necessary to prevent crimes rather than talk about it afterwards. Currently, pupils are escorted to the bus stops. However, no one knows for sure where these kids will end up later.